some of the first questions I want to talk about with this book, it's going to be really, really difficult. And for those that have read more of the book, no spoilers. We're literally just talking about this first book, Red Rising here. I feel like I'm about like a good decade behind the conversation with you for this one. You wrote it a long time ago. You were 23.
I did.
You were 23 when you wrote this.
I was 22 when I wrote it.
Oh.
Or 23. I guess I guess I started writing it when I was 22, finished it when I was 23, yeah. And it came out in 2014. I can still abide the no spoilers policy. It still plagues the fandom on various discords and on Reddit. So
What
people are pretty
spoilers?
respectful. Spoilers, yeah, because some people find the book later on. But books, like wizards, arrive exactly when they mean to.
Nicely said.
Thank you.
How did this all come about? How'd you become a writer?
Well, I didn't know it was possible to become a writer because my parents, I didn't grow up in a artist-driven household, but I moved around a lot when I was a kid. And I think I was on my 8th state by the time I was 18. And you can't take friends with you, obviously. They have their own lives, but you can take books with you. And so my books were my friends and the people between the pages. And the pages were the people that I guess like taught me a lot of things. And so, I'd always be outside when I was a kid. And so I'd be like, digging holes or building a fort. And I would continue the stories long after they'd finished. So, in Star Wars, I found a lot of love, or a lot of, how would I say, adventures and a lot of love in the expanded universe.
You read every single
extended
book,
universe,
I
yeah.
heard. Every single
Pretty
book.
much every book until the New Jedi Order, yeah. So I don't know if that's like some 200 all told or something, but I just really loved that series, and so I was able to. Sometimes I was able to, continue it with, like in Star Wars' case, with the books that came out. But other times, I'd have to extrapolate, and I guess I was building the storyteller muscles when I was young. My parents would tell you that I would talk faster and then just tell stories and then fall asleep. Because they could always tell when I was tired because I'd just be bullshitting and then fall asleep mid-sentence. Yeah, exhausting. I wouldn't say I was an easy kid to raise, but my parents got me hooked on all the great classics in Western literature abridged. So they're written for like 8, 9-year-old kids, and so they were giving me, the Three Musketeers, Great Expectations, and stuff when I was really young, and we had the whole set. There was hundreds of books that I had access to, and there was no barrier of entry. I was able to understand the themes and the characters of Dickens's books or of Alexander Dumas's or Mary Shelley's Frankenstein without having to have the reading level. So I think that it was very much ingrained in me at a young age to tell stories, but I didn't start until I was 18, and I was waiting for the new Game of Thrones actually to come out at the time because I'd read Game of Thrones in high school and was made fun of mercilicely.
Really? I got my whole family into Game of Thrones as soon as I found out it was a series going to be
no,
made
like
into
no
one.
one in my family would read it. So it was my own private thing. None of my friends really read it. And I got taunted. I still remember like in math class, a kid like taking up my book and reading the back and like, oh, Daenerys and her full-grown dragons, and I'm like, you don't even know.
I actually had that with Harry Potter when I was in year 8. I remember I smashed it out. I was like under the bed sheets with the torch.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have
Oh my
anything.
gosh, so often, yeah, and I would fall asleep in school because I would never be able to go to bed.
I failed Japanese because I was
my
reading
God.
this damn book, and I remember going to all my friends, you have to read it, and they're like, what is it about? And I'm like, it's a boy wizard, and they're like, no one's gonna like this book. No one cares, Maude. And that was like,
no one cares, Maude, and now you have no friends, Maude. Okay, back to the books. Oh, too close.
I have some friends.
You do? No. I was being the bully. I was taking on the voice of the character.
Oh.
Yeah. No, you have friends. You have a lot of friends. You have so many friends. You have too many friends.
There's one. I hope. Okay, so you read a lot of books, but
read a lot of books, yeah. And so I was waiting for what was it? It was Between Feast or Crows and Dance of Dragons. And so my parents moved yet again, and I'd yet to start college, and I was home during the summer, and I just started writing a book, and I wrote a book that was terribly bloated and awful, and a fantasy book.
What was it about?
Oh my God, I can't even tell you.
Yes, you can.
No, I can't.
No.
Okay, it was like, it was so pretentious. It was called a Requiem for Light, and it was about this.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's about these super beings in this fantasy, like high fantasy world that used to patrol the skies on Pegasuses and Griffins, and they would have like aerial jousting fights, like throwing lances at each other in Superior. And then slowly they'd turned into an oppressive, superhuman regime. So some of these things ended up in Red Rising.
Okay, what is it about that theme that you love so much?
I think that humanity has always been a pyramid. And in any society, whether it is communism, socialism, fascism, democracy, it ends up being a pyramid-shaped structure with an oligarchy at the top.
Mm.
and I'm interested in fundamental human truths, you know, and I think that investigating that through science fiction and fantasy is quite fun because we can look at our own world and see reflections of it in a dark mirror, so to speak.
Do you think we're all
And
fucked?
well, I think that every generation throughout time has claimed to saying that.
Uh-huh.
So, yes and no.
Okay.
Yeah, we're a relatively young species. So, you know, don't know how much longer we have left, but we could be fucked. We're certainly fucked in the end, you know. The sun will die out, but, you know,
Fun.
then we're talking billions of years instead of thousands. So in the end, we're fucked, but yeah.
No, I think the worst thing is going to happen before the sun blows up.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I
Yeah.
mean, we'll find a way.
Are you going to move to Mars if that's an option?
No, I hope to attain a level of fame that my ashes are scattered there, but I would not
That's
move there. I'd visit
nice.
there. Yeah. I think that's the only reason I would actually like fame is just that NASA would be like, well, we have to take him up.
When did you learn to write? Did you do
Uh,
well in school for writing?
no, school didn't really hold my interest. It was always very difficult. I don't think often I even got into AP English.
What's that?
History
Sorry.
was always, yeah,
What's
history was my passion.
what's AP English for the
Advanced
non?
placement English. So it's
Oh.
like the place where they send the smart kids, you know, in schools. So I
Oh.
went to public schools, I went to private schools, I went to like 12 schools overall. So I wouldn't say I was especially I wouldn't say I received any compliments for my writing at a young age,
Huh.
except when we had like in 6th grade, actually I remember this kind of fondly. We had in 7th grade an assignment to write a poem, and I was reading Milton at the time, as one does, and I wrote this incredibly epic poem. Epic in terms of like it wasn't like great, but it was very epic size
Right.
wise. And I turned it in to my professor, and he thought I had plagiarized it. So that was the first compliment I got on my
Oh,
writing.
that's wonderful. Do you still
Yeah,
have that poem?
it's somewhere around here. It's probably on my old Sony Vaio or something. Yeah, it was a poem about war written by a
There's an
13-year-old.
It's that theme again.
Yeah, yeah. I don't, these are things I love. I think my first like coloring book was like of the Trojan War. So I've always been obsessed with the Greeks and the Romans for very different reasons.
Who's your
Rome.
favorite Greek/Roman god?
Oh God.
Yeah.
Athena.
Yeah.
Probably. Yeah,
Yeah.
Athena. I've always enjoyed her as well, she's one of the lasting totems of the strong feminine in Western canon. In fact, in many ways, she was the first strong female character, which is, you know, how Red Rising was born from another strong female character that lasted the test of time. The play Antigone, that was 2,500-year-old play, and it's a story about a woman who wasn't allowed to bury her brother,
Mhm.
and she buried him anyway, and was told she'd be executed if she buried him, and because he was a rebel, and she buried him, and we're still I mean, people still read that, people still perform that play, and I've always thought that to be very powerful.